introduced herself, but I think we've definitely got the right person in the room because Amy's been heading up our scholarships team. What is it, for about 4 years now?
2017 it started.
Yeah, 5 years. So you're out. Yeah.
So you sit in admissions then, Amy? Do you? That's your
Yeah. So the office is based within the admissions office, partly because the kind of remit and the aims of the office really are around the recruitment and conversion. So we're working with applicants rather than students most of the time.
So I can't remember, at Sussex is admissions part of student recruitment marketing and...
Yeah, so how it's changed a bit over my 12 years at Sussex, Justin, but so it's been swings and roundabouts. But I mean, I set up the marketing team and everything. But at the moment, current configuration is that Rob, Amy's line manager, head of admissions, reports into me, and then the head of UK recruitment, the head of the international office, global engagement, who are our sort of partnerships and mobility team, and I've missed one, widening participation, all reporting to me. Although in effect, I'm kind of sort of line managing marketing as well, but we're all now part of a bigger division that sort of tends to be the trend at the moment. So we're part of a new communications, marketing and advancement division, headed up by Emily Tayfield, who's new to the sector from June last year. But yeah, so we took a decision. It's an interesting decision actually. So, I mean, we've been talking about it for, when we talked probably for about 3 years before the actual office came into being, about where it would sit. And I was just pushing really hard at that point in time, as I know Rob Evans was the head of admissions, to try and get a scholarships office. Because scholarships was all over the shop. So just to give you sort of some background, the Pro Vice Chancellor at the time for teaching and learning, I think did a great job actually in terms of trying to ascertain what our scholarship spend was. So like many institutions, and I experienced this at Birmingham as well before I joined Sussex, was that frankly the institution at one point had no idea what it was spending on taught scholarships or research scholarships, which is frankly unbelievable. Yeah. Certainly unbelievable in this day and age, but going back 8 years, it really did have no idea what we were spending. And the reason for that, I think, was it was very local, it was very dispersed across the institution. So schools were going off and doing their own thing, in essence, and then, not really keeping tabs on what they were spending and whether it was efficacious or not. So there was a scholarships committee that was set up centrally, chaired by the PVC, to basically try and get a grip on what on earth we were spending and whether or not it was having any impact on recruitment. After 18 months of banging a few heads together, which was very much the style of this PVC, you finally bish bash boshed enough people into getting a kind of grip on what we were spending. And so with that new sort of data, we were able to start making better decisions. And as a result of that work, really, I think it led to two things. One was the creation of the scholarships office, which, and the logic behind that was, let's centralise, very much in line with our admissions principles as well. So admissions at Sussex is very centralised. So pretty much 98% of all applications come through. So the central team, certainly UG level, pretty much 95% of PGT level now. The only exceptions to the rule at the moment, and once we've got a new student information system over the line, they'll come in line as well, I'm sure, but is PGCE admissions are dealt with separately currently. And at postgraduate level, there's a couple of tiny little courses in psychology that's dealt with separately. But
and how many in the scholarships office?
Members of staff?
Yeah.
There's 2 of us.
Good.
So it's just me and someone else that works.
So how do you assign your roles, the 2 of you then? How are you marking particular parts of the university or?
So I'm the head of the office and the member of staff is a scholarships coordinator. So the split is that way. So I'm involved in the policy conversations and the planning and how it fits in holistically with everything else that's going on. And Natasha is on the ground answering the emails, processing forms and the more kind of hands-on stuff.
Okay. So this particular piece of work I'm doing is looking at UK students, scholarships, bursaries, and any other sort of kind of incentives really around that. So I'm not looking at international at the moment, although I may get round to that later on. So the key things, I'm particularly interested in the sort of the governance of it all, how it's all organised, structured, and this issue of looking at the returns on investment and whether analysis goes on there. I'm also interested in branding, so whether particular packages are branded there, or whether there's an overall branding. And I'm also interested in this, how you manage this tension between the localised school-based approach, because they get a lot of individual alumni funding, versus the university side. So those are the key things. I have looked through your web section, and you've got a long list of scholarships on offer, which is great. There are a few things that stand out to me, which I'll come on to in a moment. But just sort of focusing on the governance. So you have this committee, and are you both on that committee?
So well, I'll just backtrack a little bit. So the committee the formal committee was disbanded with the sort of bonfire of committees which took place about 4 years ago.
Right.
But we decided, in essence, it was sensible to maintain a sort of informal, it's still a committee really, group chaired by me. So rather than being chaired by PBC, actually it's going back 5 years now. We decided for me to chair it, given it's sort of all about recruitment in essence. And so that group's comprised of, obviously Amy's the key person behind it, the secretary, writes most of the papers. And then we've got a finance representative, who's exceptional, who's really helpful. We've got the head of the international office on it, the head of UK recruitment, the director of development and alumni relations. Who else have we got? Amy, we've got
WP.
WP, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Rob, obviously from admissions.
Head of admissions. We've got who else? We've got a postgraduate admissions officer. We've got a head of school coordinator. I don't think we have, haven't we?
The school administrators are invited to take part.
They don't tend to come. Occasionally they might do.
Yeah.
So it's mostly centralised then, so you have this control.
Is there anyone else we've met? So Richard Follett comes on now, doesn't he? So our Deputy Pro-Vice Chancellor International, who's increasingly got a brief for all of recruitment, supporting the Provost, who's currently sort of the executive lead on recruitment. So the DPVC now comes along as well, just to sort of maintain a view on what we're doing.
And in that committee then, are you constantly reviewing what's on offered and assessing what's happened as a result?
Yeah. So the principles we took, so going back to when the last Vice-Chancellor arrived, Adam was mindful of our spend. So we're a small institution, basically the margins are pretty tight, and the history to this is we were spending a lot of money on scholarships. So after the scholarships committee set up, right, we took a decision to centralise our scholarships. So all of the school scholarships pretty much disappeared, were pulled, and we centralised our scholarships, which Amy can sort of tell you a bit more about. We'll talk a bit more about specific scholarships, and that worked really well for us essentially. And one of the key drivers to particularly two of the postgraduate awards, the Chancellor's scholarships and the Sussex Graduate Scholarships, the PBC and I came up with, and we decided that what we wanted to try and do was create more opportunities for undergraduates to stay on to postgraduate study. And so we created these, which allowed our undergraduates to stay on and get, at the time, very generous, £5,000. It's now not £5,000, it's now £3,000, but £5,000 scholarship to stay on to master's level scholarship, providing they didn't go anywhere else in between. That was the Sussex Graduate Scholarship. Mm-hmm. And that was if they got a first class degree, they'd get a 5k. If they got a 2-1, they'd get a 3k. So we were spending an awful lot of money on that. We then, the Chancellor's Scholarship was set up for students who got a first class degree from anywhere else in the UK or Europe, who would, didn't need a break between undergraduate masters, but if they got a first class degree, they'd be eligible for 5k. So basically when the new VC came in, he looked at this and thought, God, we're spending a hell of a lot of money on scholarships. It was working. Mm. So the two strengths were, we were getting really good calibre of students coming in with first class degrees. That was tick box. That's what we wanted. But secondly, and most important for us as well, it was impacting positively on our destination of our education leavers. Sorry, destination of what's it called? Delhi data. Sorry, forgotten the acronym. But basically, because